Well, we've got a lot of things this year. Welcome to 2021, right?
And welcome back, Erika.
I know, it's been wild. We've got a lot of sort of disparate things going on in Manchester, and it's related to Essex as well. This week we have Jason Brisbois did a great preview talking to every coach for the Manchester Essex, for the Hornets, for sports, for the winter play. And it's going to be a whole different ball of wax this year. And I'm sure you're hearing a lot of new rules for the ski team, the basketball team, boys and girls basketball team, for diving and swimming. All of those sports, the gameplay has been cut in half in terms of the schedule. They're under a lot of constraints with how they practice. Like swimming, for instance, you can only have, 3 people, 1 in the middle and 2 on either ends of the entire span of the pool, for instance. In basketball, for instance, in games, I don't know if you're aware of this. There's no more jump ball this year. There's a lot of things for COVID and safety. No rebounding, I believe, under the basket, things like that. So they have a lot of new rules, and we have some really interesting sort of interviews that kind of guide people through what to expect. And then in the paper this week, we have the full schedule for the entire season, which I mentioned to you is kind of, it's about half, but at least it's happening. And hopefully they'll all happen, and we don't know if they will. This week we began playing, we began actual games this week. Basketball this week, varsity basketball had, both the boys and the girls, they toggle back and forth. So they will both play one school. Linfield in this case was this week. So the girls were supposed to play at home and the boys were traveling to Linfield. So the boys game happened, but the girls game did not. It got canceled at the last minute. I think we're going to see a lot of that.
And it's a lot tougher now that all the sports have been moved indoors during the pandemic. Erika, you also want to talk about the limited commercial district.
Yeah, the limited commercial district in Manchester is up by 128. It's a very large swath of land. It's got its own sort of commercial limitations. Limited commercial district says it all. So it's a little more hampered, and it's right now not really developed. And the town targeted the limited commercial district back when it created its master plan. And it's coming down to the wire in terms of really looking at what are the mechanisms by which the town can purposefully develop or allow the development of this commercial district in ways that are going to yield the most amount of revenue, because the town's got a lot of financial commitments that currently, in its current construct, it cannot meet. Water and sewer is a big issue. It's got to be almost entirely over time upgraded, and that's very, very expensive. We're building a new elementary school, if you haven't noticed, that's going to be open next year. We're in the middle of that. That is a massive sort of capital expenditure that we will be paying for the next 30 years. And then, of course, within the next 10 years, in less than 10 years, and it's going to happen before we know it, we're going to replace the Essex Elementary School. It's going to come time to do that. And that's going to become both towns' burdens, just like the new school in Manchester is both towns' burdens. So Manchester's looking at this and saying, how are we going to find an incremental annual income of between 1 million is they would be happy with, but they'd be really happy if they could get $2 million in tax revenue. So that's a big thing. Yeah. What's happening next week? There are 2 hearings. There's 2 planning board meetings. One is a regular planning board, and the other one is a public hearing. It's a public forum to discuss something called 40R. 40R is a Massachusetts it's an overlay district. It's a Massachusetts overlay district that towns must vote in by town meeting, a town meeting vote with 2/3 majority. And the town is trying to educate, residents. They've been doing it for about a year. I went to the first public forum about 18 months ago. That was my first educational forum about 40R. 40R basically rewards towns and developers for creating spot development that integrates residential, commercial, like mixed use, retail, things like that. So they've really targeted this area. There's 2 meetings next week. There was a lot of chatter about it.
Gotcha.
Erika, just a couple of things. First of all, the 40B is an entirely different conversation, just to make that clear.
40B is something that the town didn't control or initiate, right? 40B is something that the state, it's a state law that punishes for lack of a better word, towns that don't hit, that haven't moved to accommodate the town's standard for housing that's affordable. Not affordable housing as in low income, but affordable housing as in a certain percentage of the average regional income, individual and family income. You have to have 10% of your housing stock that meets that, and Manchester is at about 5%, so it doesn't meet that. So 40B is something a town would be vulnerable to. It's vulnerable to a developer coming in and saying, I want to do a 40B. 40R is something that a town proactively seeks out to control its destiny and control its revenue plan through taxing, you know. So what you can do is you can say, okay, 40R, I'm going to get a company, I'm going to lure a company to come here. It's going to employ some really good people. It's going to provide jobs, and it's going to provide a lot of revenue to the town. 40R is a great way to do that. And 40R has a lot of goodies, for lack of a better term, that the state gives you if you do it. They reward you. So for every residence you create, they give you a little boost. They give you a little reward for it to the town's coffers. So towns actually really like 40R because they're doing what the state wants them to do anyway. Behind all of this, by the way, all of this is being driven by one thing, which is Massachusetts, and Manchester in particular is no different than any other town. It's getting older, it's getting old. So our population, our demographics are getting older. And when you get older, you have less income. And so you need affordable, streamed down or scaled down living. And that's just the truth. And Manchester struggles with the fact that we have a huge population. I think we're projected to have over 50% of our population being over 65 within the next 10 years. That says it all. And we have, I think we've talked about this. I mean, there's a surprising number of people, 7% of people over 60 in Manchester have an income of less than $50,000. Think about that. I think that's very surprising to people about Manchester, but it's true. And where are these people going to live when they sell their homes, their 4-bedroom houses that they've owned since 1962? Where are they going to move to? Do we have a town that is going to accommodate them? And where's the best place for them to live, to be honest with you? So, you know, things like that, options. That's a huge issue that we're all going to have to grapple with over the next probably 10 years.
And I did note that in your article, there's a senior housing facility would be one of the proposed uses for the 40R, I believe.
Yes, but there's also talk with the Affordable Housing Trust has been talking. We've ran many articles about the Affordable Housing Trust has had some great articles. They're desperately trying to work creatively with developers to redevelop their existing properties. And one of them is for older people. Newport Park is a senior low income housing thing. And the problem with Newport Park, by the way, I'm not going to say it's an embarrassment, but anybody from the Affordable Housing Trust would say it's an embarrassment because it's duplexes that are beyond their age. They're not compliant with most kind of safety. You wouldn't build them today. Many of them, they're all duplexes. Many of them are housed with people in a wheelchair with stairs. And they're not maybe handicap compliant. They're in desperate need of upgrading. And so what they're doing is they're trying to work with developers creatively to say, listen, if you rebuild all of these things, we'll let you have some market rate housing. How's that? Now that's the kind of solution that the town really needs. And I hope that, and by the way, where do you want to be if you're downtown? If you're downtown, downtown, which is walkable and lovely, it's a really good thing. So the Affordable Housing Trust has been thinking about this for a very long time. This isn't a new issue.
Right.
Erika, quickly, you want to talk about big changes at Cape Ann Savings Bank?
Yeah, we did a piece a couple of weeks ago. It started out just on the website, but we're going to have it in the paper this week because it deserves it. This coming July, the Cape Ann Savings Bank is going to have a new president. Bob Gillis has been the president since 2017. But he's been with the bank since 1974. That's 46 years by the time he retires. So long time. I think he came as a retail loan officer. I think that's what he was. And now he's the president. He's a great president. He's stepping down. But Mary Ann Smith is taking his place. She started the bank in the 80s as a teller. So you've got that kind of culture of people being there for a long time. Now, she did leave the bank for a while and then returned, but she's the chief financial officer. She's going to be the new bank president. But what's really more remarkable about it is it's the first female president in the 174 years that the bank has been around, which is a reason for a lot of celebration. I think it's a really wonderful milestone for the bank. The bank's really proud of it, as they should be. And I think this is part of a larger trend in banking. I look nationally to see sort of what were the stats for women in banking, and the whole banking industry is going in this direction. So Cape Savings Bank is really coming along and they're at the front of it.
That's great.
And people should check out the cricket for polar plunge pictures.
Yeah, we've had the polar plunge this year. We got a cute bunch of pictures at Singing Beach of a Labrador who tried to go out and kind of check out and save a paddleboarder.